They played a concert when I was a freshman. Every day we had somebody at 4 o'clock, he would play Welcome to the Jungle, because that's like the big song, and it just came out that year, and he just blare it, and you could hear it all throughout the quad. Long distance away from the WIC dorm. Okay, yeah, today we're going to talk about controversial topic, which is looking at race. And then we're going to discuss something that's come up during this election concerning race. The notion of implicit, or what's they call it, implicit bias. And how many of y'all have a laptop with you? Damn, nobody does. No, I should have sent an email. Oh, you got a laptop? Okay, good. So that'll be one perspective. And let's see, how many of y'all have cell phones where you can log in? I've never tried one of these on cell phone, so I don't know if today's exercise will work as well. There might be some bias within the study of bias, but hopefully we can get through that. So have your cell phones ready. Do y'all get connection here? Okay, good. All right, a couple things before we get to the study. First off, from now through about 8:50 or so, we're going to talk about the melting pot, the origin of the term, and then this will get you to the as opposed to what. Then till about, I would say 9:05, 9:10, we'll talk about Frederickson and 4 different models of ethnic hierarchy. Starting about 9:10 or so, I'm going to have you log into a site, and by the way, you don't have to do this. It's totally up to you. Some people, nobody here at the college, of course, but as you'll see in the disclaimer, some people get kind of upset by the results, and they'll say, oh, are you saying that I'm a biased person or so? You know, that they don't like the way the results came on in. Not designed to do that. So it is totally optional whether you want to do this or not. I think you might get a lot out of it. And nor do you have to do it about race. Race is just one way that you can look at it. The one I did for my example was on religion. In fact, do I have any religious biases toward another person? Because I was given a talk to a Methodist church, so that's why I did mine. I didn't do it on race. I did mine on religion. Although I did a previous one on race 8 years ago, so I can talk about that a little bit. So if you're ready to go, let's move along. So where do we get this term melting pot? Y'all catch that? When did we start using this term melting pot? And why were we using it? First off, before we even begin, how many of you even heard the term melting pot before you looked at the syllable? Oh my gosh, okay, so we're never really quite sure whether it's like a term used by the younger generation. It's certainly one for like older generations. You know, people, professors, staff people who are a lot older than me, they're very aware of the term. How did you become aware of the term melting pot? When did you first hear about it? When did you hear it used?
In middle school and like history or something like that.
Oh, okay, so it was like worked into a history curriculum?
Yeah.
Go ahead, anyone else?
Schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse, oh my gosh! I was going to try and track that down. I think I might have it somewhere on one of these, like the link to it. Maybe that's it. I'll have to look to see if it... I mean, with a laptop and projector, who knows what's going to happen, but I'd never back away from a challenge. So, Schoolhouse Rock. Wait, did you watch Schoolhouse Rock at home, or did you watch it? Oh, they played it in school? Get this, I am so old that I watched Schoolhouse Rock when it came out on TV. Like, there would be like new episodes. That's how old I am. Because I was about 7 years old when they started, 6, 7 years old when it came out. And so it would come on TV, like, you know, you'd have your, like I'd watch my Scooby-Doo cartoon, and then they would like, they'd have like 5 minutes of commercials, and then they'd like tuck in a little 3 to 5 minute Schoolhouse Rock thing at the end. You know, it was like, because it was like public service. Now it's like all, you know, it's 10 minutes of commercials. When my son watches the new Teen Titans or something like that. Yeah, a lot more commercials than there used to be. Episodes that would be like 25 minutes, like cartoons are now more like, you know, 20 minutes, and they break them up into 2, so it doesn't seem like it's that short. Okay. What did it mean to you when you did y'all have a discussion about melting pot, or is it seen as like a term that applies today, or is it sort of looks like it's set for a different time?
It's just like America is a melting pot because it's a bunch of different people from a bunch of different backgrounds coming together to live together as well.
Okay. That was supposed to be the idea that America would be a bunch of different people coming on in together. but to form something new. And this is going to fit into Fredrickson's talk as well, because in Fredrickson's talk, we're going to, or Fredrickson's piece, let me see if I can't find, come on, where is it? I don't have my Schoolhouse Rock. Oh, there it is. Let's see if we can't get this. Like I said, anything could happen today. One of the problems of using tiny font. All right, we'll see if anything plays. Now, how many of you have seen this before?
I've seen
The school, Great American Melting Pot.
I've never seen this one.
I also play it for my education class. This is good, except we don't have any sound. I'll fix that.
My grandmother came from Russia, a satchel on her knee. My grandfather had his father's cat he brought from Italy. They heard about a country where life might let them win. They paid the fare to America and there they melted in. The lovely lady Liberty with her book of recipes.
Okay, that torch should just not be.
By the English,
but also by the German section French.
the principle still sticks, our heritage is mixed. So any kid could be the president. You simply melt right in the town. What your skin, it doesn't matter where you're from or your religion. You jump right into the great American melting pot. Great American melting pot. Ooh, it's blue, red, white, and blue. America was the new world, and Europe was the old. America was the land of hope, or so the legend told. On steamboats by the millions, in search of honest pay, those 19th century immigrants sailed to reach the USA. Lovely Lady Liberty, with her book of recipes, and the finest one she's got. Great American melting pot, great American melting pot. What good ingredients, liberty and immigrants. They brought their country's customs, their language and their ways. They built the factories to the soil, helped build the USA. Go on and ask your grandma, hear what she has to tell. How great to be American and something else as well. Lovely Lady Liberty, with her book of recipes, and the finest one she's got. The great American melting pot, 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 the great American melting pot.
Definitely has a 70s flavor to it. No doubt about that. In fact, I know you refer to them as Schoolhouse Rock, and that's the overall category.
Last, the three-ring government.
Okay. I'll have to save that for my other ones. It's actually, they didn't call it Schoolhouse Rock. That's what they called it a year afterwards. But this, along with some of the others, was done for America's bicentennial, 1976. So the 200th anniversary of declaring independence. That's when the whole thing started. So it didn't have anything to do with science or grammar or learning other terms or electricity, some of the other ones, some of the terms you know. It actually started out as America's Rock, and it would come on. Let's PCS, but also PDS would play in too. But it was designed to celebrate like America's history. And so there's like most of the ones you see about the Revolutionary War, or they'll talk about Manifest Destiny spreading on out. It was designed to teach people about history. Only later did they add the other things as well. Who's got their book? I see a couple of y'all have their book. See if you can go to Edgar St. John de Crèvecoeur. See what he says about what it means to be an American. He's best known for a series of essays, Letters from an American Farmer. He was a Frenchman who came over to the United States, we're going to say about the 1700s or so, and he wrote to people back in the old country, and he was trying to explain how things are somewhat different. What's the quote? What does he say what it means to be an American? Go ahead, who got volunteered? Do I have a voluntold?
I'm just trying to find it.
Oh, you're trying to, okay. Good. What does he say? It's in the section created equal. Don't get that. My copy's on reserve, so I can't read it, so it's up to you.
I don't see it anywhere.
Created equal? It's not in there. What it means to be an American. When he was, I mean, I'll paraphrase for you. I thought it might be in there. Really? Not under created equal? I mean, it's not a reading. It's in like the general section.
I don't know.
Like when they do, you know, when they do the intro, they have like, that's the one part that the editors actually write. Everything else is like a collection of essays. So if you're like citing them, you're citing this section, this would actually be the authors. Otherwise, you're just citing the, otherwise you're citing whose excerpt they pulled from.
It says, "What then is the American, this new man? He's neither a European or the descendant of a European. He's an American who, leaving behind him all his ancient prejudices and manners, receives new ones from the new mode of life he has embraced, the new government he obeys, and the new rank he holds. Here, individuals of all nations are melted into a new race of men whose labors and posterity will one day cause great changes in the world."
100 years before they even came up with the term melting pot, this is one of the first times where you see this guy's writing. He's saying, I mean, you may have been a European before you came over here. You may have been African before you came over here. You may have been from Asia before you came over here. You may have been Latin American before. But once you come to this new area, you become a different person. Isn't that interesting? I mean, normally, you wouldn't have a case where somebody be in West Europe, they go over to East Europe, and then they would say, you're a totally different person now. I mean, that's why this is part of the class. If you think about it, it's called the American experience. This is like one of like 10 quotes where you'd have to say, this sums up an American experience. That simply by going from one geographic location to another, it's like changing your ethnic identity, your race. It changes your personality, who you are. You can't find many cases where somebody makes that conclusion that once you're taken from one area, you become a totally different person. Unless y'all read Heart of Darkness. Anybody read Heart of Darkness? Joseph Conrad? I hated it. Oh God, I couldn't stand that book. It was terrible. Until I saw a movie that borrowed the idea. If you ever have to find yourself reading Heart of Darkness, don't read it first. Watch the movie Apocalypse Now, which is set in Vietnam. And they were pretty much making the conclusion that people who went over to Vietnam, who fought over there, just changed completely. Yeah, they became a very different person. After I saw that, suddenly the book got very interesting because I didn't know much about Africa and colonization in the 1850s. But just about every scoutmaster, just about everybody's dad had served over in Vietnam when I was a kid. And I heard plenty of those stories. And it helped me kind of understand some of like what they might have gone through being in a very difficult situation. Even then, somebody didn't say Americans may have changed in their personality, but they did not become a completely different identity. Any more than Europeans who were colonizing Africa. How many of y'all saw the movie or read the book Lord of the Flies? They were trying to make this, what'd you catch out of that? I mean, you got these elite, the creme de la creme of British schoolboys being sent away from war-torn conflict. Do y'all remember what happened?
They totally went barbaric.
Yeah, you saw a clash between those who wanted to keep a semblance of civilization, even in a remote, inhospitable island, and others who just went rogue. That's like what they would do. And that was like one of the arguments, like, do we go to like our base instincts? Are those base instincts that we have just always lurking above the surface? Take the civilized person out of civilization and they'll act totally different. That was the conclusion. They said some people they would try and remake the new land the way the civilization was. Others like, no, you revert to some base characteristics. But Krevakwa, he's not saying that it's like, oh, you go over to America and you're going rogue. Well, maybe going rogue, but not you're not going to, you don't become something base characteristics. You are becoming something different. Anybody take anything else away from that quote? Melting together. What about that side? What do you take away from that?
It's just like coming together to work together and live together and make everything work.
Because he didn't live in like an area where it was only French folks. No, I mean, he came over and suddenly he's mixing up with people from a lot of different areas. He's claiming to be an American means that you're thrown into an area where, I mean, yes, it's a new land, it's new rules, but you'll be set next to a lot of other people from other different cultures. The term melting pot comes from a guy who wrote, I'm guessing it was about 1912 or so, 1911. It was a playwright named Israel Zangwill. What a great name. Israel Zangwill, who used the term. Now, this sort of kicked off a debate. You'll see Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson on one side, Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry Ford on the other. What are the battle lines? Did y'all catch that? What are they claim? You know, people trying to have a debate about who we are. And not only who we are, but who are we going to be? What did Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson conclude? Go ahead. It's in there. Created equal. What did they argue for? All right. I want this group. Have you already done the reading? You already know what it is? What were Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson? One's on the $2 bill and the nickel. The other's on the $100 bill. What are they arguing?
Well, Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were arguing for like the pure white. They didn't want the white to mix in with it.
Oh, this is kind of like what we talked about earlier with Jefferson, right? They didn't want, well, did they say no African people could come in? Who were they targeting? Did y'all catch this? Who did they say that they were worried about coming on in and changing this traditional American culture of the 1700s? Did y'all catch this? Who was that race of people who were going to come in and upset the apple cart? Asians? Blacks? This would be an excellent multiple choice question. Is that what they said? Who did they say that they were worried about coming in and polluting everything? Is it?
I think it was all ethnic.
Who were they most concerned about? I bet you everybody who's not here, they're going to fall for that question. Mostly based on Thomas Jefferson's writings that we saw earlier. But who were they worried about coming on in? Who was going to change this American identity and make it different? Can y'all catch it? You're getting all the usual suspects, but who are they? You'll never suspect.
Was the Irish?
Yeah, obviously paid attention in high school and college, but yeah, you never heard people cracking on this dude. Have you found it yet? Certainly they didn't edit this little part out, did they?
Was it American Indians?
No, I don't think they
had a
had.
bunch of different things floating around in
Let's
here.
see.
Bunch.
Oh, you're looking, you're reading Frederickson, I think.
Yeah.
No, you're,
That's Frederickson.
that's Frederickson. No, from Created Equal. Who are they worried about?
That's really Frederickson.
Yes, we are. We're gonna get to him in just a second.
That's fine.
Don't worry, we'll get to him.
I created equal
Well,
days.
Created Equal. Where do we got? Come on, Created Equal. Who are they worried about?
Intro.
Yeah, where is it?
It starts on.
Here we go. Who are they worried about? I mean, over time, people had these concerns. Yeah, they did mention Sons of Africa. They were worried about Germans. What? Germans? Yeah, there were a whole bunch of German people who were tired of centuries of warfare. I mean, there wasn't a Germany back during those days. Germany didn't exist till 100 years after the United States. Did y'all know that? Italy, same thing. Oh, we think of Italy and Germany as being like these long countries. Well, Rome's been around a while. Their Germanic people been around a while. But those didn't exist as countries till 100 years after America declared its independence. If you think about it, America as a nation state is actually much older than most countries. Very few countries are as old as the United States. Britain, France, Spain, Portugal. There might be about 10 countries that are older than the United States. Yeah, we're one of the oldest countries in the world as a nation state. Yeah, they're Germanic people. There are people who spoke the Latin language. There's a Roman Empire, but there's no Italy. Anybody here been to Cancun?
Yep.
Right? You've been out there, that's like the part of the Yucatan Peninsula. There's no country called Yucatania. But imagine if 20 years from now that area breaks off and they form this Yucatanese, and it's mostly people of like Mayan descent. That's what Italy was like. Yucatan's a peninsula. Italy was a peninsula. It was a geographic region. Well, who's to say it couldn't happen, folks? Well, when I was a graduate student, the area rose up in rebellion against the Mexican government, so a lot of the Mayan people felt that they were getting the short end of the stick, and so they rose up in rebellion. Yeah, it's a peninsula. It's a geographic area. There wasn't a country called Germany. There was that country, Prussia, I get you, but Prussia was half where Poland and parts of Russia, and Ukraine and Lithuania are today. Some Germans were in there. Yeah, these things were built after us. They were worried, Benjamin Franklin, they weren't just limiting themselves to people of a different skin color or a different race. They were worried about Germans coming over and changing the existing culture. I just bring this up because this is just letting you know it's not just a white versus black thing, right? Americans on one side and somebody from Asia on the other. Sometimes it's white. Yes, you bring up the Irish. After the potato famine, there were more Irish in America than there were in Ireland. Not just due to starvation, but so many people packed up and moved over to the United States. So, all these led to tensions. How many of y'all seen the movie Gangs of New York? Excellent political science film, one of the 10 best political science films. You never seen it? Gangs of New York? Yeah, it was about Native Americans versus Irish. Oh, you thought Native American meant India. No, people would call themselves Native American if they were born in the United States or could trace their ancestry back before 1800. They called themselves Native Americans. Yeah, Native American is like referred to Indians as a relatively new term. Back then, if you were a native, that meant you came over before 1800. And natives would, now you're just laughing at me. But yeah, natives would clash with the new immigrants. You ever heard something called the Know Nothing Party? We actually had a US president from that group. And they were pretty much keep all immigrants from coming to this country. Many of their targets were white Irish, white Germans, white Europeans coming over, taking our jobs, changing the culture. Think how many words that we use have a Germanic origin to it. Great, we'll have to celebrate their tribal customs, how they celebrate Christmas. Doesn't that change things a little bit from that perspective? Yeah, so some of the early clashes weren't just, now granted, I mean, some of the natives, if you watch the movie Gangs in New York, by the end, they've got a full-fledged race riot where blacks are targeted by the, by the Democratic Party, because it became a Democrat versus Republican thing. How many all saw the movie Lincoln? Did y'all see Lincoln, about the 13th Amendment?
Yeah, I fell asleep about 45 minutes into it.
It's like Josh Van Loo, history professor, and I, we went to go see it, and we were the only, it was like a 10:30 p.m. showing. There were two guys who were there, and they both fell asleep, and one of them, like, when they crashed out, a whiskey bottle fell over, and it rolled all the way down the aisle, and we saw this Jack, it wasn't Jack Daniels, but some of the whiskey rolled all the way down. It's a great movie, by the way. I talked to an Alabama congressman. He said that's one of the best movies that shows parliamentary procedure. But one of the leading advocates who opposed the 13th Amendment forbidding slavery was Fernando Wood. Before he was in Congress, he was the mayor of New York who encouraged many of these riots. So it became a partisan thing. Yeah, Democrats and Republicans used to be of different groups. Who's Henry Ford and Ralph Waldo Emerson? What was their take on melting pot? Well, first off, who the heck is Ralph Waldo Emerson?
He's a writer, wasn't he?
Yeah, writer, thinker, geek. The 1800s. Well, he's, seen as like American intellectual. How about Henry Ford? There's like some car thing. It had something to do with cars. Not only that, but assembly line. What were Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry Ford's take?
I think they were all for it.
Why? You were right, but why?
All for people just being American. I mean, it was growth and expansion and new ideas. I mean, they're both innovative people who are open to new ideas.
Okay, I like that. That's something no class has ever brought up. Make sure you get that down. That would be great for an essay. Yeah, they were thinkers. They were coming up with this idea. See, in the old days, it was like, the idea was that different groups couldn't live together. One would have to eliminate the other. We'd have like empires and wars to settle who would live in a particular place, who would be in charge. The defeated group usually was forced out. They'd have to leave. Right? That's what you did. On rare occasions, you try and have people live together side by side, but it can be kind of rare. My wife was a living history reenactor when we were at Florida State, when she was working on her master's in anthropology. She was part of it was a mission site. It's in Tallahassee, not too far from Doak Campbell Stadium. Not like next door, but maybe about a 10-minute drive. But at this mission site, the Spanish mission, instead of being apart from the Indians, they decided to all live together. And it could lead to some tension and conflict. But nevertheless, I mean, but it's seen as historic, and the reason they restored it, with the help of a couple of sororities that would get their service points by going out and helping rebuild some of these houses that people had, or help build some of the thatched huts. It was one of the few times in history where you had a successful case of colonists, like West European colonizers, living in harmony with Indians, rather than being separate groups. One group has to troop on in to get their church service. They actually live together. But why else? Maybe let's take Henry Ford. Why would Henry Ford think immigration is a good thing? Why would Henry Ford think that having immigrants come together was a good thing? Why Henry Ford? Think about what else he's known for.
More.
The what?
More.
Yeah, I mean, well, think about it. During his time, This is one of the greatest expansions of immigration, of migrants coming into the country. People could do two things. You could be like the 1840s and have Native Americans that resist. I know, it's just the Native Americans gonna blow your mind, right? If I say natives, but that's what they called themselves. You know, you could resist the immigration, say, no, this is bad for our country. Or, like during Ford's time, they would actually embrace it. They would have parades and parties that were designed to celebrate this melting pot, this idea where cultures could come from all over and blend together and work together and live together. Why? Why would he care about that? I mean, he went to no expense to have, I mean, don't y'all watch Thanksgiving Day? Like, they have parades, do y'all ever watch? Come on, you gotta do that at least. Nobody? Okay, I know some people save it up for the football, but nobody watched the parade? And that used to be a big thing. That's how you would show unity, was a big parade. I mean, think about it, they're expensive, gotta get everyone organized and lined up. You think, why do we do it? Even this town, I can't believe the parade they have. Like the first time my wife and I came down, we thought, oh yeah, let's go down the parade. That'll last like 5 minutes. Like 2 hours later, we're like, holy crap. There must be people from several counties over. There are. Have you ever looked at the diversity of the parade? Diversity in race, diversity in religion, diversity in which groups come out to be represented, diversity in civic organizations. That's what parades are. Unless you're the Klan, you pretty much have a kind of an open parade. I mean, it's hard to be an exclusive. And I wouldn't call those things parades. Incidentally, people told me about the last time there was a Klan parade, or a Klan rally downtown. Said it was in the 1990s. But no, if you go down there, you'll see folks from Kia. You'll see blacks and whites. You'll see bands, you'll see floats, you'll see a great deal of diversity. And it's celebrated. Nobody goes out and says, yeah, cheer on the Koreans, but I mean, you know, don't need to. There's a 4th of July parade too. Not as long because, geez, it's freaking 104 degrees, but you get the idea. And oftentimes, you know, they have the similar spirit. That's what parades are. Henry Ford loved parades. People like parades, you know, go out, it's fun, it's exciting, it's a spectacle. It costs a lot, but you're trying to get, what message are we trying to do? Yeah. What's the goal? Why would a business person, and think about it, just about every business has got something sunk into that parade.
If everybody's getting along, they're probably going to work together better.
Good for working together. What else?
Publicity.
Good for publicity. When you say good for business, it's not just good for workers, right? It's good for
It's good for him himself. I mean,
company, himself.
because if he supports everybody, then nobody's going to be like, oh, he doesn't support white, so he doesn't support black. I'm not going to buy for it.
It's good for business in that it's good for customers. I don't think you're going to make a whole lot if you engage. If you want to go into business and you want to limit as many customers as possible, I don't think you're going to survive very long. McDonald's didn't used to be the dominant franchise in this country, not by a long shot, but it didn't take long for it to become dominant. There are a lot of stories as to why. In fact, there's a movie coming out. Michael Keaton plays Ray Kroc, the guy who put together the franchise. Also, the guy, he actually helped found the San Diego Padres. If you look at the San Diego Padres, like with that brown and yellow, that was the McDonald's uniform of the time. So, yeah, there's some corporate tie-in as well. McDonald's got to the front from two different ways. One was franchising, which meant that if you owned a McDonald's, I mean, you know, you were part of a franchise, but it's not like you were under the thumb of somebody. You had a great deal of independence. It was almost like being your own boss or your own CEO. You would, you know, you would have the label, the logo and stuff, but it gave a lot of autonomy. And the second was when they showed ads, McDonald's you know, when McDonald's shot to the top as the dominant franchise. People go, oh, it was about the Golden Arches. Great idea, Golden Arches. You know, or it was the Big Mac having the, you know, or then every ad they ran, whether it was TV ad, magazine ad, or so, they went out of their way to show as diverse a customer base as possible. Workers and people being served. Why is that a big deal in the 50s and 60s? When McDonald's races to the top. Go ahead, I'm sorry. Civil rights movement. Why else? What's related to that? Why does that matter for McDonald's? It's food, it's not. Or is it about rights?
More people want to eat there because they see their community represented.
Okay. Groups being represented, good. Why was this a problem elsewhere? Or sort of, I should say, as opposed to what?
I mean, some restaurants they couldn't even eat like with the at the tables with the white. Sometimes they have to go through the back door.
Either back door or you wouldn't be served at the lunch counter, right? At a place where, I mean, if you had a number of places saying, like, you can't be served here. We're pretty much saying, come on in. And also, for anybody who's white who has a problem with discrimination in food service, come on over. Basically, anti-discrimination can lead to profits because what you're doing is you're growing your customer base. So during a time when, let's say, you're driving across country, I mean, unless they say outside with a big sign, you know, blacks not served here, which some places did, you really didn't know. But if you watched an ad or if you saw in Time magazine a picture of McDonald's, you always knew you could come in and get food. You wouldn't be discriminated against. You know, this is why, you know, the business exploded, whereas a lot of other mom and pop places, I don't know, it's crapshoot. Some places you could be served, some places you couldn't. Does that make sense? So in other words, Henry Ford saw that there was profit in this melting pot. Not just for who would come work for him, but this would be good business. Now I keep saying, as opposed to what? There are 4 types of ethnic models. Right? Well, I'm sure these aren't all the 4, but most times scholars try, when they come up with a typology, they try to create a somewhat simple typology. There's like an infinite number of ways people can behave. But a lot of times they'll say these are like the 4 dominant sorts of ways in which countries organize themselves along ethnic lines. Ethnic hierarchy. What's a hierarchy?
It's like a division of power, pretty much.
Okay, a division of power. How is a hierarchy organized, Lauren? What's a good shape that represents a hierarchy? Okay, so it's got to imply height, top to lower.
It's pyramid.
Pyramid or triangle? I'll take either on the exam. Yeah, that's what a hierarchy is. Why that one? Why not a square or a rectangle?
Because you have very few people with the power.
Few at the back. Okay, so vertically, you can jot this down in your notes. Vertically, that's where power is. Horizontally, what does that reflect? Go ahead, Jerome.
The amount of people in that power. It's like at the very top.
Okay, yeah, we got the vertical is the power grid. What's the horizontal grid?
Everyone has the same power. The amount of people.
Yeah, or just amount of people. I'll go with that one. That's perfect. So the amount of people is horizontal. That's why it's wide at the base, narrow at the top. And a hierarchy ethnically. Can anybody think of an ancient or contemporary culture which is an ethnic hierarchy? Anybody taking Dr. Ahern for classes? Well, a monarchy is a hierarchy, but not ethnic. How about an ethnically hierarchy? Or ethnically hierarchical association? Ethnic, though. Well, I guess you could say that. Yeah, okay, I'll go with Egypt. How is Egypt organized?
Oh, there's one religion where they're I think it has to do with the promise, but like there's certain like castes. There's a caste system.
Caste system. Okay, I like Egypt. Nobody's ever mentioned Egypt. I was about ready to say ruled, but no, that would actually fit. Let's do the Egypt one since nobody's ever done that, and then we'll go to yours, which is one that's even stronger. Think about how is Egypt organized? Go ahead. Who's at the bottom? Come on, this is Bible study, folks. Didn't y'all go to Sunday school? Peasants. Oh, yeah. Peasants. There's somebody below peasants. Slaves. You know, anybody that they conquered. Who were some of the slaves in the Bible in Egypt? Israelites. Yeah, they come on over. You know, hey, come on over. You have a famine and stuff like that. Okay, Joseph's out of there. Boom, you're slaves. You know, and then you're done. Other people Egypt conquered. They could be because the Jews weren't the only slaves. The Israelites. They weren't the only ones. There were a lot of people. They'd be at the bottom. Then you got your peasants, right? Local people, kind of lower on the totem pole. Anybody above that?
Trade workers, people like that.
Yeah, skilled workers and stuff. People who cut the stones for those cool pyramids that the aliens built. They work for the alien. Nah. My wife in anthropology, like one of her pet peeves is the whole aliens came down and built pyramids in America. Sorry if I offended y'all. Any alien thing? Oh, okay. Like you watched Stargate. That was that movie Stargate. And I thought, wow, Stargate's a cool movie. And my wife was seething all the way through. She's like, saying that freaking aliens built all this. Yeah, because all the aliens look like Egyptian gods. By the way, did anybody see Gods of Egypt? That was actually kind of cool. I took the kids to see that. It was much better than I thought. I'm waiting for it to go to the $2 bin for DVD. Didn't do that well, monetarily. But yeah, you got your skilled workers above the peasants, above the slaves, up near the top. Now, for a while, most people don't realize it. In Cleopatra's time, during the Ptolemaic dynasty, those people of Middle East descent, Arabic type people, they were pushed down to the second tier. The top tier were people of Greek origin. Yeah, Cleopatra, Ptolemy, some of the others, they were Macedonians and Greeks. They had conquered the area during Alexander the Great's time. So yeah, so when most times they always portray Cleopatra as looking like she's from the Middle East, and it's like, yeah, it's not quite right. Yeah, they were Greek origin. So what they did is they displaced the Middle Eastern people of that time. You know, Alexander the Great's forces conquered them, and so they had a new person at the apex of the pyramid. Then the Romans come in. You know, and right now the Egyptians are back in power. But yeah, that's a hierarchy, right? Gerard, tell me about the, what's the India story?
The caste system?
Yeah.
Well, basically, there's like, I'm trying to remember the most I came about, but there's different castes, and like, basically, people are born into that caste. So you're born into like poverty, and you're supposed to live as someone who's like in poverty and does poverty type jobs, or you can be born into like a rich system. I don't remember the names of the caste systems.
And what's interesting, these castes are so powerful that you could be of Indian descent, but which family you're born into, they've made basically a socioeconomic system that becomes ethnic based.
Yeah, and only like the upper caste.
It takes on that. Now what happens if you want to mix with castes? Let's say we got a Disney movie where you got like Aladdin down here and you got Princess Jasmine up here, and they're just gonna mix together and have a good old time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta stay within your caste for your job, who you're gonna interact with. Anybody ever seen the movie Slumdog Millionaire?
Yep.
Slumdog, really? Okay, how does that fit in? Or did you catch that?
No, I think
It may not have been as obvious. If you watch it, go ahead and I would. So you've only seen. I mean, it won Oscars. I mean, you know, it's
a really good movie.
It's an awesome movie, especially like game shows. But what may have been bubbling under the surface is this guy who's trying to like win a lot of money in Slumdog Millionaire. He's from one caste and he's in love with somebody from a different caste. And you notice there are times where he's running for his life and people are like burning places, because this is people trying to mingle outside of their caste. And them's fighting words in some cultures.
Yeah, but they both started off poor, him and the girl.
Yeah, but even, I mean, you could both be poor and I mean, there's contemporary India economics,
Yeah.
but you can still be of different castes,
Okay.
different families. Isn't that weird? So like you still have, I mean, it's not based on how much you own. So he feels like in the new India society, in this new democratic system, he could probably get on ahead, but it's going to be very difficult. Yeah. There are definitely Hindu nationalists who want to reestablish this caste system. Christian missionaries get in a lot of trouble over there because when they try to go to an area and Christianize, they usually tend to focus on, who do you think? Telling them that there's a better life, that they can improve their station, you know, in the afterlife they'll be doing better, and that ticks off people at the upper castes. How dare you jump ahead of me in line? You're there for a reason, right? Don't they say there's some reason why you're at the bottom? I know you're born into it, but
There's something about, I can't remember exactly, but something about like the lower caste comes from like the hands of God and stuff, because the hands and feet, because they work, like the legs and arms are different castes, the body is different castes, like the mouth is like one of the, and the head is like one of the highest up. It's like,
I'm mixing South Asian religions, but oftentimes most people believe that you're born into a system based on what you did in a previous time.
Karma.
Like you're there for a reason. You're at the, you know, you're where you are for a reason. Now, I'm not saying, you know, not everyone has the same views on reincarnation or something like that. I recognize there's a whole diversity of cultures, but there's a lot of idea about you are where you are. Sometimes this appears in the Old Testament, doesn't it? You know, the sins of Abraham is why you're in this situation. That's why the Israelis always get knocked around places. You know, there's some reason why you're where you are. Yeah, not supposed to be a lot of intermingling in the ethnic hierarchy theory. I mean, the races are supposed to be separate and there's a pecking order. One group is supposed to be on top. We were talking, a couple of us as professors, we were debating about a new candidate coming on in. We're talking about how the Bible has been used. And we had a professor who's much older than most of us. And she said, I remember a time where people would trot out the Bible and they would use that to explain why you can't have interracial marriage. Like why interracial marriage is a sin. You know, the 1950s. So it's not just, hey, this is different, or hey, we don't like this. This is, it's wrong because God doesn't want it to happen. That's a very different argument. There's a movie coming out about it now called Loving. Has it come out already? It's about the Loving case in Virginia, where interracial marriage became a Supreme Court decision, whether it would be permitted or not. That would be ethnic hierarchy. Because remember, you're not supposed to move among castes, right? Races aren't supposed to intermingle if we adopt this. And there's a pecking order. Some groups are supposed to be at the top. You ever heard the phrase natural order of things? Book came out that was very controversial. You can look it up, jot it down in your notes. Read it if you want to. It's called The Bell Curve. Anybody heard about this? Richard Herrnstein and Charles Murray. And they made the argument that there are differences in races and there should be this pecking order based on IQ scores and standardized tests. It was very controversial because, as you can imagine, they put blacks and Hispanics toward the bottom. But if you actually read the book, I mean, everybody argued this back and forth. If you actually read the book, there were many people who were white who were defending it, going, yep, this is how it is. This is the way things are. If they read the book, they'd realize that whites are not at the top. Yep. Asian Americans were superior. Now, when I was having arguments with people about the bell curve, I brought that. Nobody seemed to read that part. It's like, well, if you go by standardized test scores. And what they were claiming is it was all genetic, had nothing to do with environment. That was another controversial argument. Not like it had anything to do with the parents. Remember how we were looking at the section on education and we're talking about parental influences, the environment, if you have two parents, what type of school you went to before high school, what's your neighborhood like? None of that seemed to come on in. Ooh, 9:29. See, we're moving along. How about we finish up assimilation, cultural pluralism, group separatism on Friday, and then we'll do the test. How about this? Since I didn't warn you beforehand, how many of you have a laptop that you can bring in? About half of y'all, can you? Because I want to test this based on laptop because I've never seen anybody do this on cell phone. I wonder if the way the game is played, it's different when you're on cell phone. I know because I'm adjusting to this brand new cell phone and it's very sensitive and it's hard to type because I'm used to a keyboard on my old BlackBerry, the 2011 cell phone I had. I'm just like, now I'm having to like go like this. I keep making lots of mistakes. It's a joke from holding. So anyway, see y'all on Friday. So read up on Fredrickson so we figure out the differences between these theories because I know I'm going a little slow, but it's going to be on the exam, so I want to make sure you got it right. What did I say? Now I want you prepared. We're going to go over something on Friday that'll be on the final test. Sorry, didn't mean to confuse it.
What's the game called?
Is it what? Nope. Do tell. How's it going? Got the exam over in my office, so let me shut on down.